Several thousands of asylum seekers from Haiti, South America, and Central America set off from Tapachula, Mexico, to the United States border. The United States expects the logistic crisis to extend beyond year-end season. Goods shortages are worsening amid a slowdown in the supply chain. Delegates from the United Nations Security Council delegation met with Mali's transitional president, Colonel Assimi Goita. Hello, from the headquarters of Televisor English in Havana, I'm Bray Gomez, and this is From the South. So we begin with the news. Several thousands of asylum seekers from Haiti, South America, and Central America set off from Tapachula, Mexico. The latest mass movement of people trying to pass north through Mexico said they hope to eventually reach the U.S. border, where the number of asylum seekers trying to gain entry was already hitting new records. Some 3,000 people, including families with young children, began their long journey on foot on Saturday from the city of Tapachula near the Guatemala border toward Mexico's capital. One of the caravan's organizers said he was leading the group to the Mexico City in protest of the lack of government assistance in the south, where officials have attempted to contain thousands of people and to demand legal documents that would let them move freely in the country. With the presence of General Raul Castro, the second plenary session of the Cuban Communist Party concluded on Sunday in Havana. The initiative debated strategies for the improvement of public management and policies for national development. The leaders of the party met to discuss the mechanisms of change with people, the improvement of the economic model, and the implementation of new measures for the modernization of the Caribbean nation in the context of the USH. The meeting approved the program for transformation of the political ideological work to forge an emancipating and unitary culture, as well as the central report on the plenary, which gathers the most relevant data on the development of the economy and the implementation of the agreements of the 8th Congress held between April 16 and 19 of this year.
What we need most is to do things faster, to do things well, because if we evaluate here all the work done, all that has been implemented, how much has been unblocked, how much autonomy has been given, how this training of these new actors has a view on production to increase the quality of services, to incorporate activities that from the point of view of microenterprises, of small enterprises, can be done more efficiently. What we need is to articulate ourselves and achieve what with an active participation of the militants in all these places, we can undertake the path that our people especially need. Because we have worked hard, but the people have many dissatisfactions. We have many things to solve, and with the participation of everyone in each place, we have to achieve that aim.
Problems have been transferred, and they are today in the current Cuban scenario, and allowed the party leadership structures the issue of participation that has been called for a lot, and above all to inform and communicate what has been done. We are all obliged to render information in different scenarios at different levels of leadership of the management we carry out every day.
China donated another batch of Sinovac vaccines to the Philippines on Sunday to support the country's COVID-19 vaccination campaign. The donation arrived in Manila along with the vaccines of the same brand that the Philippines purchased from China. Chinese ambassador to the Southeast Asian nation, U.N Security said the new vaccine delivery demonstrated a kind of friendship from the Chinese government and people to the Philippines. China has sustained the COVID-19 vaccine supply to the Philippines since the first delivery on February 28, allowing it to kick off its vaccination drive on March the 1st. Up to date, over 55 million doses of COVID-19 vaccines have been administered, with over 25 million Filipinos being fully vaccinated. The government aims to vaccinate up to 70 billion people this year. Taking into account the progress and effectiveness of the vaccination process and the prospect that over 90% of the population will be fully vaccinated by next month, Cuban authorities get ready to open the country's borders as of November 15, 2021. Cuban Foreign Minister Bruno Rodriguez Perillo stated the opening will take place when the Caribbean island already has more than 70% of its population immunized against COVID-19. Last Tuesday, Minister of Tourism Juan Carlos Garcia Granda said mandatory PCR tests will not be required for international travelers who are vaccinated, amid mandatory quarantine requirements will be lifted for these arrivals as well. For international travelers who are vaccinated, they must present a health passport or international anti-COVID-19 certificate of those vaccines certified by the corresponding regulatory agencies. Tourism official also highlighted the mandatory use of face mask is maintained within the air and port terminals, as well as throughout the country. World Health Organization Chief Tedros Ghebreyesus said the COVID-19 pandemic will be over when the world chooses to end it, adding the tools needed to accomplish this goal are available, but the world has not used those tools well.
Is that the pandemic will end when the world chooses to end it. It is in our hands. We have all the tools we need: effective public health tools and effective medical tools. But the world has not used those tools well.
We have more coming up after a short break. Welcome back. In the United States, the goods shortages are worsening amid a slowdown in the supply chain. The North American nation expects a logistic crisis to extend to year-end season. Empty shelves that can be seen in specific stores, while ports are working 24 hours a day to try to mitigate the imbalance. Although the commercial sector is focused on the consequences of the crisis during the upcoming Halloween, Thanksgiving, and Christmas holidays. Analysts and officials agree that the structural nature of the shutdown could extend the problem throughout the coming year, with a marked effect on inflation. In addition, the lack of labor force and the country's outdated railroad infrastructure are structural causes of the imbalance. An emergency zone was declared on the blazing cargo ship off of Western Canada after containers carrying over 50 tons of dangerous chemical caught on fire. In a statement, the Canadian Coast Guard said 16 crew members were evacuated from the Simpkinson ship of Victoria, British Columbia's capital. The fire was caused by a combustible chemical power spilling from containers that were damaged in a storm as the ship, arriving from South Korea, approached the entrance to Strait of Juan de Fuca. At the time, about 40 of the ship's containers tumbled into the Pacific Ocean in rough seas. According to a navigation warning sent to all ships in the area, a 1-mile exclusion zone was in effect around the container ship in the vicinity of Constance Bank due to the danger of failing containers. Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has told his foreign minister to expel the ambassadors of 10 countries, including France, Germany, and the United States, who had appealed for the release of a jailed social activist. 7 of the ambassadors represent Turkey's NATO allies, and the expulsions would open the deepest rift with the Western Turkey head of states at 19 years in power. The envoys issued a highly unusual joint statement last Monday saying the continued detention of Parisian-born philanthropist and activist Osman Kavala was not good for the country. The ambassadors of Canada, Denmark, France, Germany, the Netherlands, Norway, Sweden, Finland, New Zealand, and the United States called for a just and speedy resolution to Kaval's case and for his urgent release. Osman Kavala has been imprisoned since late 2017, charged with financing nationwide protest in 2013 and with involvement in 2016 failed coup. The Prime Minister of Hungary, Viktor Orban, assured that the European Union is attacking Hungarians and Polish by treating them as enemies. The right-wing leader expressed his support for the Polish during a speech on the occasion of the anniversary of the 1956 anti-Soviet revolution, ratifying that the high European leaders led the decisions on the communitarian countries without their full knowledge. Statements he made in preparation for a campaign for the upcoming elections, the first ones to be held in over a decade, and which could represent a possible risk to Mr. Orban's mandate.
Let's not forget the fact that when we got down household utility bills, when we slashed the surplus profit of multinational companies, and when we sent home the IMF, the entire European Union attacked us. Brussels is talking to and behaving with us and the Poles as if we were enemies.
Vote counting started in Uzbekistan after Sunday's presidential election. Voters in Uzbekistan went to the polls in a presidential election in which incumbent head of state Shavkat Mirziyoyev faces no solid opposition and is almost certain to win a second term. In his bid to secure a second 5-year term, Mr. Mirziyoyev faces 4 contenders who are loyal to his government and who were plucked from parties in the rubber stamp parliament.
The main problems are in the regions, not the capital. In the capital, everything is more or less fine. People have water, gas, electricity. In the regions, unfortunately, there is a lack of all this.
And activists fighting for the rights of sex workers gathered in Venice on Sunday to participate in the project 20 Years of Activism under Red Umbrellas. The project takes place until October 30. The rally marked the 20th anniversary from the first demonstration organized by the Committee for the Civil Rights of Sex Workers, led by activist Carla Corso, during the Venice Biennale in 2001. Holding red umbrellas, a symbol of protection from abuses, violence, and prejudices, activists replicated their march on Sunday, walking from Santa Lucia rail station through iconic Venice streets. During the week, activists plan to hold meetings and realize other initiatives to discuss the conditions and rights of sex workers 20 years after they started their fight and gave birth to the movement.
Today we are doing this demonstration because it is 20 years since the committee has used the umbrella thanks to the artists and art of that day. The red umbrella has become the symbol of the claim for the rights of sex workers, for the rights of women, transgender and migrant sex workers.
We have more stories coming up after this financial break. Welcome back. Delegates from the United Nations Security Council delegation met with Mali's transitional president, Colonel Assimi Goita. Security Council delegates led by the UN ambassadors from the US, France, and Niger arrived on Saturday for 2 days of talks to push the military-led interim government for a return to democracy after 2 coups in 9 months. They also met with civil society representatives and armed groups and signed a 2015 peace agreement. Human Rights Watch called on the UN to pressure Mali in weekend talks to investigate similar executions and disappearances allegedly carried out by the military in the African country. The delegation added to international pressure on coup leaders to abide by February 17, 2022 deadline set by the Economic Community of West Africa state for the presidential election. Dozens of women, took to the streets of Dhaka on Saturday to protest against the consequences of climate change. The demonstrators explained that the main objective of the mobilization is to promote the participation in the climate debate, to encourage and educate people about the importance of climate concerns and its effects. The proposals are to be reflected at the COP26 Climate Summit to be held next month in Glasgow. The mobilization was also carried out and dedicated to future generations so that they take into account some initiatives to counteract climate change.
We know that there will soon be this great summit in Glasgow, and we want to hear the claims of women who are committed and who fight against climate injustice. We know that we are all committed. We all have the same planet. Why don't the others stop polluting our continent? We do not want this pollution anymore. We have no more water tables. In the interior of the country, animals are dying for lack of water or the soil is poisoned. We can't do agriculture anymore. How are we going to develop?
Palestinian Prime Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh called on world nations and especially the United States to confront Israel over the aggression that settlement construction poses for the Palestinian people.
The announcement of 2,862 new settlement units and the legalization of 2 new settlements and settlement units in the hearts of the city of Hebron is nothing but a blatant aggression against our land. The world must pay Israel the price of its aggression against our people, especially this latest wave of building settlements and settlement units. Accordingly, President Mahmoud Abbas will chair at night an emergency meeting of the Palestinian leadership to discuss these developments and launch an international Palestinian campaign to curb this Israeli aggression against our people.
At least 8 children died due to famine and poverty in the west of Kabul, where the Hazara community lives. The former deputy Mohammed Mohakik took to social media to denounce that the Taliban movement does not provide an adequate standard of living for the Afghan population, which aggravates the situation of famine and poverty in different areas of the country. For this reason, the former parliamentarian urged the international community to provide support to members of the Hazara community and other minorities with the aim of reducing the mortality rate of children given the serious malnutrition. In Ecuador, 4 climbers died after an avalanche on the Chimborazo volcano. Local authorities have confirmed the death of 4 hikers on the Chimborazo volcano in the Riobamba city. There is 1 injured and 7 missing in the snow. The group of climbers was trapped after an avalanche that occurred when they were ascending to 6,100 meters above sea level on the morning of the Sunday. Personnel rescue are working in the area to search missing hikers. More than 600,000 people have been affected by widespread flooding in South Sudan since May, with many forced to flee their homes. According to the United Nations Refugee Agency, South Sudan has experienced the worst flooding in 60 years, with over 700,000 people impacted across the country. After weeks of heavy rains, the floods have swept away homes and inundated farmland, forcing families and livestock to flee to higher ground and neighboring towns. Others are stranded on islands surrounded by water, unable to cross to safety. Many of those affected were still struggling from recovery from 2 previous years of floodings. With rains expected to continue for the remainder of the year, the U.N Refugee Agency warned that increasing numbers of people will need humanitarian assistance, particularly following the loss of crops and livestock. The Spanish island of La Palma experienced a 4.8 magnitude earthquake with a depth of 38 kilometers. The same day, the Cumbre Vieja volcano again collapsed into the main cone, causing large lava flows. According to the National Geographic Institute of Spain, the earthquake was the greatest magnitude since the volcano eruption for over a month. The Cumbreviejo volcano, one of the most active volcanic complexes in the Canary Islands, erupted on September 17. The largest earthquake recorded since the onset of the eruption had been 4.5 on the Richter scale and had occurred on October 17. Until now, the volcano destroyed nearly 900 acres and destroyed about 2,000 buildings. Many of them are homes. In addition, about 7,000 people have had to be evacuated since the start of the emergency. We've come to the end of today's news brief. Remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at Telesur English. And you can also follow us on social media for all the latest news. We're on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For Telesur English, I'm Ray Gomez. Thank you for watching.